recognize that the Hogan Administrative Center occupies the land of the Ho-Chunk people. Please take a moment to celebrate and honor this ancestral land and the sacred lands of all indigenous peoples. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Alberts?
Here.
Mr. Bagnuski?
Here.
Ms. Berkedal?
Here.
Dr. Garcia?
Here.
Dr. Jimenez?
Here.
Mr. Manka?
Here.
Mr. Newmeister?
Here.
Dr. Sprague?
Here.
Ms. Sukla?
Here.
The quorum of the Board of Education is present, so the regularly scheduled meeting of May 20th, 2024 is called to order. And we'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's agenda has previously been distributed to the board, and I'll entertain a motion at this time with a second to approve the agenda as submitted, unless there is a motion to amend.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Newmeister, second by Mr. Manka to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is carried, and we'll move on to public speakers. It is the policy of the board to provide at its public meetings an opportunity for individuals to address the board. Comments about individual staff or personnel will not be allowed. Open meeting law prohibits the board from engaging in discussion or responding to matters not included on the agenda. All speakers are reminded that this same policy limits your time to speak to 5 minutes, and this time will be strictly enforced. And I'll ask the superintendent to keep track of the time and to notify the speaker when the time is running out.
I will do so.
Thank you. You're also asked to give your name and the school district where you reside at the beginning of your time for the public record. And our first speaker is Jill Shams.
Good evening. My name is Jill Shams. I live at 2110 Redfield Street, La Crosse. I come to you again this week to speak in support of the referendum as it is written. I spoke last meeting of the renewed hope and sense of relief that I and many of my colleagues felt, knowing that a path to move forward for our schools was in place. I then stayed and I listened to the rest of that meeting. I heard many times words spoken in support of teachers and the work that they do. Mr. Newmeister recognized teachers ahead of Teacher Appreciation Week and also spoke of the need to work as a team with teachers and staff who are often the frontline contacts with parents and community, specifically for the referendum. The board had a lengthy and productive discussion, 45 minutes, about community engagement plans surrounding the referendum. And then at the very end of the meeting, Ms. Sukla motioned for an agenda item to be put on the next board meeting to further discuss the referendum. This confused me. Why, after such a lengthy discussion about giving information to the public, would there then be more talk about other proposals or even rescinding the referendum? This constant back and forth is causing, again, confusion and distrust. Teachers and the public are looking for solid leadership from this board. The previous board, including Ms. Sukla, voted in favor of the referendum language on April 15th. What would then cause there to be a need now to revisit it after the path has been set? Even the manner in which Mr. Manka's vote for this agenda item being first voiced in the negative and then changed to the affirmative, it gives the impression of a lack of trust in the ability of this board to keep moving the district forward. Joining the board in the midst of major changes and decisions isn't easy, and certainly there is a major learning curve to understand all the complexities of being part of a decision-making body. The previous board had more than enough time to hear the evidence and the recommendations regarding the closure of schools. There was ample time to discuss, debate, and ask for community feedback. Now that a decision has been made, it is up to this board to continue the forward movement to ensure that the community knows the benefits that this referendum will bring to our city. While the task may seem daunting, it is incumbent upon the new board members to do your homework and be up to speed. The trust of this board risks being deteriorated. When a long-term substitute teacher takes over a classroom mid-year, that teacher is expected to know what the class has done previously and what the future lessons and goals are for learning. They do their homework and they show up ready to do the job. Students get 180 days to make the growth that is needed in a school year, and ask any teacher, there is no time for delay, there is just too much to do. I had an impromptu conversation with a person in my neighborhood last week. As we chatted about gardening and such, it came about that I'm a teacher. She asked my take on the referendum, and she also commented, as a teacher, you must have pretty good knowledge on the subject. People trust their community's teachers. It doesn't matter if you send your kids to La Crosse, Aquinas, Onalaska, Holman, Luther, West Salem, or beyond. You trust your child's teachers. You trust them to do the very best for your child and to lead them in the right direction. I am looking for the same trust in this board to lead our district on a path toward financial stability, security for teachers and staff, and consistency for our students. Teachers work to ensure students are getting the best education possible, and beyond that, they work twice as hard to ensure that students feel safe and welcome in their learning spaces.
30 seconds remaining.
We do this with consistency and expectations. Students and teachers trust each other through clear and consistent ways. I am looking for this board to offer clear and consistent messages about the decisions you make and the goals you have for this district. I look to Dr. Jimenez, the president of this board, to ensure that the board continues the work for the community and all of its stakeholders in a clear, stable, and transparent path forward. You were all elected to do the important and difficult job of guiding this school district, and I need to trust that you can follow through and do it.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our school showcase, which is our Hinchin Elementary School's 5th annual Read Your Heart Out event. Dr. Engel?
We are very excited to have Emily Juneau here to present,
I also have Delane.
and Delane, on this wonderful event that has happened, how many years now? Fifth year.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear.
You go first. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak with you today in a little bit different context than you've seen us the last few months. We are thrilled to highlight a truly special event in our community, an event that has grown and flourished over the past 5 years at Hinchin. It's one of our favorite events. It's called Read Your Heart Out, and it's a cornerstone of one of our equity efforts and celebrations at Hinchin. Read Your Heart Out is dedicated to bringing African American stories and voices into our classrooms by inviting members of our community who identify as Black or African American to come into our classrooms and to read books featuring Black characters or books written by Black authors. This event not only enriches our students' understanding of diverse perspectives, but it also celebrates the richness of the African American literature. The books that readers can choose from are culturally responsive texts, and they celebrate Black culture, making certain that our students and families see themselves in our school's community. Read Your Heart Out was started in 2004 in the Madison Metropolitan School District by a teacher at the time named Michelle Belnavis. The event was started with the specific purpose of bridging family engagement and Black history and was planned to coincide with the National African American Parent Involvement Day. It has since evolved into an annual celebration spanning many Madison schools, and more recently, schools across the state are joining to celebrate during the month of February. In its early days in Madison, the event was led by teachers who started at Michelle Belnavis and Andrell Davis, who later left teaching to work for DPI, and they led efforts at DPI on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Read Your Heart Out was one of the many family engagement and culturally relevant activities. They identified as integral to closing the achievement gap. Only schools who engaged in training with them were able to implement this event. Our administrator has been part of this experience since she was in Madison in her early days, and because of that, this powerful event was shared with our school, and it seemed like the next natural step in our equity journey. So in 2019, we were the first school in our area to hold this event. We found it to be both engaging and affirming and powerful for our students, families, and our community. Since then, we have made it an annual event. At Hinchin, we have a specific goal to continue to build positive school, family, and community relationships. The purpose of our event is to bridge literacy, family engagement, and cultural relevance. This event could not be achieved without collaboration from our families and our greater community, which Delane will talk a little bit about. African American community values of unity and self-determination guide our celebration, which joins families, guests, and staff and students as one for our Read Your Heart Out Day at Hinchin Elementary.
Cool. And we have a video coming up soon, so I won't talk too long. But last year, we were honored to have over 50 readers from the community come and join us at Hinchin. These readers included community members, former students, students from other La Crosse elementary schools, and of course, parents of the students of Hinchin elementary students too. Their participation was invaluable and deeply appreciated. This event is a powerful example of family and community engagement. We also had the UWL drumline come in to kick off, basketball players from Central, and just a big kind of celebration day, so it's pretty cool. One of the many highlights of Read Your Heart Out over the past years was Mia from Mia's Kitchen. Came and donated or had some food, and then a cake donated by Festival too. We also partnered with Gunderson to provide custom T-shirts. This is this year's, that was last year's. And then the other years, we didn't have enough people here to wear them, so we didn't have them. But just some of the big examples of the community partners that come in to the school too. And it's really cool because it's a unique opportunity to do all of this during the school day, because I know a lot of places do family night events after school, but this is another opportunity that in addition to that, we can do it during the day too. It's more than an event, it's a celebration, a day where we come together in the beauty of storytelling and the importance of literature and academics. And then we brought this video that highlights this year's Read Your Heart Out. It captures the spirit and joy, and I hope it kind of gives you a glimpse of what it means. And did I miss anything?
Just one
Feel
thing.
like I missed something?
Yeah, just this T-shirt is designed. We have all of our students design their own design, and then each grade level chooses something from that grade level, and then it goes school-wide, and the school votes on which design it is. So every year, it's designed by one of our students. So it's pretty cool. They get really
Yeah.
excited about it. So
This was a second grader, and this was a first grader maybe,
yeah.
and a fifth grader.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. So here's the video, and then we'll stay up here if you have any questions for us after too.
board might have some questions, so don't, you're not free just yet.
I mean, we could talk about this event for hours, so.
And I'm sure we've got lots of comments and questions as well, but I just want to open it up to the board members if there's anything.
How many average readers do you have that participate in this event?
Our slots fill up every year, so
Yep.
it's whether if something comes up, they don't show up, otherwise it's
We
50
had-
last year, and I wrote these numbers before we had our event, but we had the same amount this year, so.
You said 50?
50,
Oh,
yeah.
wow, that's
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, and we have different opportunities for them, so if they don't feel comfortable reading or being in front of the group, they can support in an art activity. We had like Black History Bingo, we had finding your skin color, and we put them in like that heart that you saw in the video.
Bop or flop
Bop or
is my
flop
favorite.
with different like music, and so they just have different opportunities if they don't feel comfortable reading in front of the class.
Thank you.
Dr. Sprague?
Do you know how many books or like how many pages, how many words were read over the course of the event?
No, and only because we have, our library is like full of all the books on display, and it covers our entire library.
Nice.
And so they pick a book from there that they want to read, and then they return it in case another person wants to read it, but that's a really good idea.
I can tell you, I teach 4th grade, and I had 8 readers on the day in my classroom, and 7 out of the 8 chose books to read, and then we have 14 classrooms, so if you do some of that multiplication, but a lot of the readers chose to read because that was important to them. And then I had to one of my friends came in and I was like, we got to do a movement activity for this one, so we did a bop or flop, but a lot of them chose, although many opportunities were given, except in lieu of reading, a lot of them chose to read, so.
And I would say Mia from Mia's Kitchen, who made a lot of our food for our readers, she got to experience this in Madison when she went to school there, and so when she heard that we were doing it, she was really excited. She said it's one of her favorite things to do the entire school year. And when she came to classrooms, she was in both of the classrooms we were
She was
in.
amazing.
And she didn't read, but she shared a lot of her story and like what brought her to do Mia's Kitchen. So I just like the power of that for our students who can identify with her like of a goal for the future.
Mhm.
Other comments?
The artwork at the end, did students do that?
Yeah,
Yes, some of the teachers had to help a little bit with some of it, but one of our teachers who was on our board for Read Your Heart Out, found it and created it and printed it off for the classrooms. We got to vote as a class, which person we wanted to do, and then we all
it was a
colored in.
mosaic artwork, so each
Yeah.
student got like a square with like the
Told them
drawing.
exactly kind of what to color, but it was still tough for some of us. So.
Any other comments? Fantastic work. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the recognitions portion, and we will be talking about the Global Education Achievement Certificate and the Wisconsin Seal of Biliteracy. And I believe we have, who do we have? Pardon me. We have Katie Beyer? Yes. All right. Should I head down?
Do you have a preference on what program we start with? We're here to talk about 2 different programs.
We'll allow
that we
you to
have.
decide for us.
Okay, so we can start with our Global Certificate Awards. This is a program that is through the Wisconsin Department of Instruction that honors students who take pathways throughout high school that expose them to different multicultural opportunities, and along with a language component as well. So these students have to take 4 credits of a world language and then 4 other additional credits throughout high school that focus on multicultural. Some is through a healthcare aspect, some is through social studies, environmental sciences. We have a lot of courses that we're proud to offer to allow students to do this. They also need to reflect on 8 literary works, so 4 books and 4 other literary components. So there's a lot of work that is involved with that. And they also have to participate in 4 multilingual or multicultural school events and a 20-hour service project to finalize the program. So it's a very labor-intensive program, so the students that have earned this have worked really hard to have this honor, so we're proud to give them that today. So I am Katie Beyer, by the way, on behalf of Logan High School for this program, and 2 of the students earning this award are unable to be here this evening. So one was Hennessy Schaefer, and the other was Braden DePaulo, who cannot be here unfortunately. But we do have one of our students that's here, and she's gonna come on up and talk about her program and her project that she did to earn this honor. So that person that we are proud to announce is Molly Erickson. So come on up. This for you. I'll put these out of your way.
Hi, my name's Molly. Obviously, I'm a senior from Logan. I just finished the program. Definitely took a lot of hard work over the last 4 years, but I would most definitely say it was worth it. I'm just really proud to say that I put a lot of effort into this, and it's something that I can use in the future, and I can kind of spread the awareness on how important it is to learn about different cultures and just different things going on around the world. But I'll talk a little bit about the project that I did. I did it with a few of my friends. One of them was the other one that wasn't able to be here tonight, Hennessy Schaefer. We partnered with the La Crosse Public Education Foundation and set up a donation page because the two of us were a part of the Spanish immersion program at Northwoods Elementary. I entered that program in 2nd grade, and it was the most influential thing that I went throughout my educational career, and it really made me the student that I am today. Not only did I learn a second language, which we all know is super influential and opens up a lot of doors in your life, but I also made friends that are still my best friends today, and I have relationships with teachers that I didn't even know you could be as close with. One of them's here tonight, Miss Tolstead. She is one of my biggest supporters and just someone that I can always look to. So I've gotten a lot from the Spanish immersion program, and I wanted to give back because I know through research that the program isn't the same as it was when I was at that school. It's just definitely not as hardcore when we're talking about the Spanish aspect. So we raised, I think it was about $300 through our donation page, and some of the books that we got were for, I think it was Hamilton and Northside. These were culturally diverse books, excuse me. And then with the rest of the money that we had left over, we bought a bunch of different Spanish books at different levels, and we will be donating them to Northwoods to encourage the continued growth of Spanish education and to just show them how important it really is and all the things it can do for them in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer McMahon, and this is Julie, and we're here on behalf of Central's Global Scholars Program. We had one recipient of the Global Education Achievement Certificate this year, and we're lucky enough that he is able to be here tonight. So we're going to ask Porter Culp to come up and talk a little bit about his project. And do you have a certificate?
Hello, my name is Porter Culp, and I did my service project with this program called Engine, and I did this with a few friends as well. So basically how this program works is it partners English students in Ukraine with English native speakers over Zoom and other online video chat services to help work on conversational and language skills virtually. Not only is this great for like academic reasons and improving their English, it also provides a social connection for people who are really struggling at this moment through the Ukrainian war. I started this service project back in January of last year, and even though there was only a 20-hour requirement for the service project, I have continued to meet every single week with my buddy for over the past year. So it's probably over 50 hours at this point. It's been truly incredible. Not only myself, my sister, and a friend of mine have also joined this program and continued to volunteer their time by helping Ukrainian learners improve their English and have a friend across the world. It has been truly amazing just to have this experience, to get that cultural connection and just be supportive people to one another throughout challenging times in each other's lives. So it's been truly remarkable. All right.
Hello, my name is Miley. So I am representing for the Silva Literacy with KD2, but I coach or host the students over at Central. So this year we have, well, let me talk a little bit about the program. So similar to the Global, there are projects to do. So the award grants the student a seal on their transcript stating that they have proficiency in 2 languages, so it's English and whatever concentration they're working on. Students pursuing this merit, they must complete a research project in their language of whatever language they choose to study. They have to attend 4 multicultural events, write a reflective review of each of those events, and then pass the language exam that shows that they're proficient at the advanced level. So at Central, we have a student this year. His name is Nut Sengying. He is not able to be here tonight, but I will accept on his behalf and deliver his certificate. He completed his project on the narrative vocation of the Hmong language. He discussed how the Hmong language has been historically passed through the oral language and tradition, but until recently, within the past 20 to 30 years, within our, the recent, or I should say, development of the written literacy, the Hmong language and the scope of it is being changed. So Nut Seng did a really good job with his research project, and he completed not just 4, but 6 multicultural reflections, and he also passed his exam in the advanced level. So I will accept this on his behalf. And then, Katie, do you want to come speak about the Logan students?
Hello again. In addition to what Miley said about the language test and the rigor of that, in order to get to an advanced level, students have to have the same language abilities that are required of student teachers leaving college going to enter the profession. So it is quite a testament to their hard work and dedication to learning languages throughout the years. And it was a program that we've first adapted in our district to be able to honor the students that went through our Spanish immersion program. However, we've now been able to see and honor the students that are heritage learners in our district, whether that be Hmong. We're also approved to offer the seal in Portuguese, or Ukrainian, Farsi, many other languages that are unique to the learners in our district. So we also, again, have some students that are unable to be here tonight, one being Braden DePaulo, Danielle Roberts, Gavin Wappler, and Kaylin Whitrock, and they all earned their proficiency in English and Spanish. And then the 2 students that are here tonight, again, we have Molly Erickson, who is earning both awards. I don't know, her project was the same for this. They're able to use the same project as long as it covers both requirements. So I don't know that you need to present again, but you should definitely come on up and get your certificate here. Congratulations. And then we lastly have Mason Schilliner, who is going to be earning this award, and I'm going to have him come up and talk about his research project for this. Yeah, congratulations.
Hello, it's great to see you all again. So obviously my name is Mason Schillinger. Just like Molly, I went through the same Spanish immersion program at Northwoods. And when I heard that it's changed a lot since I've been there, I was really motivated to research that and research truly the benefits of learning a second language through school. And so I started out interviewing teachers from Northwoods, from Central, from Logan, as well as all of our middle schools, including Ms. Tolstead and Ms. Beyer. And what I learned from that was that there really wasn't a whole lot of established programs for immersion in the rest of the program, not excluding elementary schools. And so this made me more interested in really the continuation of this program, hoping that we could foster a little more understanding for families who are pretty much the key factor behind all this, right? Their participation in these programs, their funding, their support is really what drives it. And so creating a research paper on the benefits of language, not just through schooling, but in general, was my project to better inform families as well as teachers and administration such as yourself. And it helped me to realize the true benefits of learning a second language. There's many there's many benefits in other language as well as in many other classes, not just language. But just the cultural aspect itself is really what made me thrilled about learning a second language, because it can connect our world together. And that's really the main point of my project, was to show that. Thank you.
Well, Mason. So, Mason, before you go, just hold on there for a second. First, I want to say to both of you, felicidades. Y que
Gracias.
ojalá con ganas lograrán sus metas. So with desire, you will reach your goals. But also, Mason, because you weren't here at the last meeting, we have a little recognition for you for serving on the school board. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for your service. Thank you for the time you have given us and your insights. And we will miss having you on the board. So I'll be right down to give you an award as well.
Yes, I truly appreciated the time that I was able to spend on the school board. Thank you all.
So congratulations.
Thank you to everyone that was here tonight for these wonderful showcases and recognitions. We understand that it's a nice day out today and it might not be for long. So if you need to head out somewhere else, we certainly understand.
I just want to say thank you to the students that spoke. You know, a part of our job is to look at policies and results, and you can't measure what the students shared with us tonight, but boy, it told us a lot about the good things that are going on in this district. So I appreciate the teachers and the students for sharing all that with us. Thank you.
Do we still have an exchange program in Spanish or French or anything? Chinese? We used to have a student.
I know we have students from other countries visiting us quite a few times. I'm not too sure if we have any programs of sending our students over there, though.
All right. Just
I think
giving
that's
them.
usually handled by third-party organizations like Rotary or AFS.
So exactly. Give a moment. And then we will move on with the approval of the superintendent's consent agenda. So the consent agenda is a mechanism that is used by the board to deal with routine business that must come before the body. Are there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove the pupil non-discrimination report, please.
Okay. Are there any others? Hearing none, so then I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda except the pupil non-discrimination report.
I will make a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda with the removal of the pupil non-discrimination report.
Is there a second? Okay, moved by Dr. Sprague, seconded by Dr. Garcia to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the pupil non-discrimination report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has carried, and we will continue conversation on the pupil non-discrimination report, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Birkendahl.
It just seemed worthy of a conversation and more explanation maybe. I don't recall in my previous 2 years seeing the same report, so I just wanted to hear more.
Absolutely. So the pupil non-discrimination report is a federal requirement that is required every 5 years. And so I think the last time we presented it was in 2020. There have been some changes since then. Back then it was like 2 sections that we had to cover, and now it's up to 12. And so the federal government's interested in, kind of more examination of our processes and procedures. The requirement flows through the DPI and the state, and so the only thing that we send up is that we completed a self-evaluation and that we presented it to the board. And so there's not any, we don't even send the report up. It's just a certification that we did it. So the point is to really just do a self-examination and to dive into how it is that we're practicing our school such that we ensure that there isn't discrimination of pupils in our school. And one thing that is a bit unique about the school district of La Crosse is that because of coherent governance, we have extensive reports that dive into what's going on in our school district, whether it's OE 10 learning environment or OE 11, the instructional program, our results policies. And for the 4 years that I've been here, since we put into place coherent governance, we've also disaggregated everything by race and gender and other things. And so it's very easy to kind of see trends and where we're going, and it makes a self-evaluation like this much more simple when you've got this running equity audit that we're doing on a continual basis. And so our primary focus then was around policies, trends, some areas where we haven't maybe had have had as deep a dive as some of these other standard areas that we've been in. And so if you were to look through the program, what you would see is we took a little deeper dive into career and tech ed participation, where we have some underrepresentation of female students, which isn't typical, across the rest of our curriculum. And we looked into high performance learners, that program, our gifted and talented program, so to speak, and kind of looked at what's going on there, trends that we've seen there, and what we've done to improve participation in those programs over time. We also look at suspensions, expulsions, extracurriculars and all that, but we have, good deep reports that already cover that stuff for our school district. At the end of the day, we're proud of what we've accomplished here. We have a few, if any, complaints regarding discrimination in our school district, and when we have had any complaints, we've been able to resolve those through our processes effectively without, Office of Civil Rights complaints or other things. And so we feel good about our self-evaluation, but as with any report where you see, non-proportionality, it's opportunities to continue to increase access for focus groups and to lower barriers to access.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the pupil non-discrimination report.
I move to approve the pupil non-discrimination report. That's so loud.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Brickadall, seconded by Mr. Manka, to approve the pupil non-discrimination report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has carried, and we will move on to the approval of the board consent agenda. Again, the board consent agenda is a mechanism that is used by the board for routine business. So are there any members that want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept the report. Or what's proper language used for that, I should ask.
Just right there.
Oh, it's literally right there.
So I'm assuming you want to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Thank you. Moved by Mr. Manka, seconded by Dr. Sprague to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried, and we'll move on to the matters reserved for board action. The first one being Operational Expectations Monitoring Report OE1, Global Operation Expectation, and this is to approve the recommended changes to OE1. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Engel.
From our last meeting, we just updated the definition of disrespectful, so it wasn't circular, and the highlighted changes in red there, along with the yellow changes that we brought originally.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a question that extends beyond this specific one, but with the process of removing the interpretation section, you do anticipate that extending, because I know in our upcoming information item, that still contains the interpretations. Is that a change that we're going to continue seeing?
That'll be an ongoing process. So every time we bring back a monitoring report for approval, we'll be making these changes, going through, realigning as we have been, and then eliminating the interpretations, and then cleaning up definitions of terms. So this will be a gardening process for a year.
Any other questions?
Seasonal allergies.
Hearing none. All those in favor to, well, do we have a
We need
motion?
a motion, yeah.
We need a motion.
I will make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the recommended changes to the Operational Expectations OE1 Global Operational Expectation Monitoring Report Template.
Is there a
I'll
second? Second. Moved by Dr. Sprague, seconded by Mr. Manka to approve the recommended changes to the Operational Expectations OE1 Global Operational Expectation Monitoring Report Template. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Motion has carried. We'll move on to 6.02, the Operational Expectations Monitoring Report OE10 Learning Environment.
Once again, the policy is relatively similar. The one thing we wanted to highlight based on the conversation that we had at the board table was in indicator 5 of 10.2, we added not only to track the use of out-of-school suspensions, but also disciplinary referrals, pre-expulsion orders, and expulsions. And then with the idea to see if they are resolved based on our criteria outlined in the Code of Rights and Responsibilities. And I think, to Ms. Sukla's point, that would allow us to track the use of expulsion and other similar types of orders, and see what that looks like over time. And as indicated, we've not had an expulsion in 14 years because we're proud of the alternative opportunities we have for students to receive an education while remaining in the school district of La Crosse.
Questions or comments?
Would this be an appropriate place to also report on report back to the board on the restorative justice work and how often that was used in lieu of out-of-school suspension or something like that? Just a thought.
Yeah. Learning environment would probably be the most appropriate policy. And within that, it could either be element 1, maintain a climate that's characterized by support and encouragement for high student success, if we frame restorative practices positively. Or enforced equitably under policy element 2. And so it could certainly be included in either place.
Something for it could go in like 10.5 indicator 1. Policies and procedures are in place and on a regular review cycle. Wouldn't it be like a policy we might review for its efficacy?
Yeah, it's a practice as much as anything, and it's a response listed in the Code of Rights and Responsibilities for a range of behaviors, when suitable. There's some screening criteria there too.
I think this is a good point, and maybe a way to handle it is we can approve the OE as it is currently if there's no objections, but maybe by the next board meeting, we might be able to take a look to see if there's an appropriate place in OE 10 and bring it back. Or we could just bring the whole thing back next time too, either way.
If that's something that the whole board's interested in, then I'd be happy to bring back the monitoring report. And it doesn't change our general practice or procedure in the interim, so.
Is there any concern with trying to add in a place where we could have a report back on restorative justice?
And perhaps I could make indicator 5 a little more holistic in terms of the broad range of outcomes from student discipline, and maybe just look at how that's structured.
As you just mentioned, it's a practice as much as anything, policies and procedures. So if we're thinking about a report on which procedures are actually in place, that seems a logical place to put it. But I wonder if the intervening 2 weeks will give you time to look at our other policies to decide if it's covered elsewhere more appropriately. That has come up in the past where something was like,
this would really be the only policy where it would make sense. And then in terms of how its use is dictated, it's we've got matrices for how we enact discipline and criteria for if it's appropriate. And so I think there would be an opportunity to look at what our current practice is and find a spot here. Okay.
So maybe then, unless there's other questions or comments that want to be made, without objection, we can table this item to our next board meeting, and then at that point in time, we can address and pass any changes that are recommended by the administration.
does that push the rest of the process forward? Will this continue for another 2 extra meetings then?
It would be approved, I believe, at the next meeting.
In the regular course of work, okay.
Yeah.
And
So-
we'd still be on track to monitor for the school board at the appropriate time per GC6E.
Okay.
Yeah, we would not be looking to change the time frame of reporting. This is just doing the language and changing it appropriately, so for the next cycle.
So we
it will
have
be
our
ready to
two-meeting
go.
review
Correct.
structure, yeah.
And it's not changing the policy in place or the procedures in place. It's just, I do think it's nice to have a balance there of like the things we do apart from expulsions.
And we invest in it, like we
Right,
contract with the
right,
next
so-
Right.
Yes,
organization.
okay. So without objection, then we'll table this until our next board
Do you
meeting.
need action to table it?
Without objection is fine, unless somebody wants us to actually take a vote, we can take a vote, but without objection, it can be done. Is there any objection to tabling?
I'd like to make a motion to table it, just to make it official that there isn't any.
Yeah, Robert's rules allows us to do without objection, but if you would like to make a motion, that's fine. So Ms. Sukla makes a motion to table the discussion on OE 10 learning environment until the next board meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, moved by Ms. Sukla, seconded by Dr. Sprague, to table this item until the next board meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has carried, and we will move on to our information portion of the meeting. And we will discuss referendum update and outreach as we do a little fire brigade.
I was hoping to check it.
So, Dr. Engel?
Yes, referendum update and outreach, listed in board docs is the schedule of community engagement sessions. Tuesday, May 21st at 12 p.m. there is a virtual session. Wednesday, May 22nd at 6 p.m. there is an in-person session at Central High School outside the auditorium in the Hall of Excellence. And May 28th, Tuesday, there is another in-person community engagement session at 6 p.m. At Logan High School in the Commons. And finally, on Thursday, June 6th at 12 p.m., there is another virtual session. These have been advertised through Facebook and on our website. And so we're hopeful to get attendance at these that will provide good information for the board, designed as a listening session. And so folks may think they'll get lots of answers, but the answers will probably be mostly about process up to this point, with the intent to really collect good information so that we can respond to the community's needs.
Okay.
There was discussion about it possibly being like small group discussion, breaking into that. Is that the format of it, or?
Yep, we're set
I'm
up.
mainly asking because
Yes.
my participation tomorrow might be a little limited, so I just want to make sure I know what I'm supposed to do.
Absolutely. Yep. The goal, we'll see how many participants are there. You know, especially virtually, it can vary. Sometimes you end up with 40 all of a sudden. Sometimes it's 3. And so kind of depending on what's there, it might be whole group if whole group counts as a small group. And so the virtual sessions will be prepared to do classroom, like breakout rooms and some other things so that we can kind of create a smaller environment. We've got the focus questions for the facilitators of small groups. And then when we're in person, we'll have tables set up, you know, so we can have multiple spots so that board members can lead those listening sessions with community members. So that's the intent, is kind of smaller, more intimate, really listen, write down the questions that folks have, and we'll scale it based on the number of participants that are there.
Will you have an email out for the virtual session, for the link, or are we just taking it off board docs?
You can take it off board docs.
Okay, I always have a little issues with my board docs, so I'm a little concerned about that.
I was going to ask Dr. Engel if you wouldn't mind just talking through how community members can access the virtual sessions in case there are folks who are just watching, you know, for the first time and maybe dropping in and haven't looked at the website or anything.
Yes, so the link is located on,
It's on board docs and it should be in the events on the school district page.
Is it going out on socials tomorrow as a reminder, or tonight?
I'm not sure exactly what Nick has planned, but I will ensure that that's the case.
Good idea.
I just checked myself. One of the questions that came up at the district-wide parent committee linkage the other night was, is there gonna be a virtual option for one of the evening sessions for folks that can't attend virtually during the day? Could we make it, how would we,
As I
set up?
I think I mentioned in that meeting, like, that these initial meetings were just that, they're initial, that there will be more, and I think we should absolutely consider that for the next slate of dates that we put on the calendar. So catch as wide a net as possible to get as many people in.
Yeah, if we were to do a virtual one in the evening, I think it'd just be easier to do it as an additional one than to add it to an in-person one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then I don't know how to use technology as
No,
proficiently as other
But
people.
No,
these are
I would-
also coming up in the next couple of weeks, I think,
Right.
changing too much at this point.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. A hybrid option is not necessarily a bad idea. I just don't know how, what it would work with trying to get small groups together. I think it's better to either do in person or do virtual, and not try to split the baby on that one.
Yeah, but adding an evening virtual session.
Yeah, I would agree.
For sure.
Yes, I would agree.
And our district webpage, the front page, there's a calendar on the right side, and the second event is the May 21st Community Engagement Session. If you click more info, you'll be able to see the links for the virtual sessions and go right there.
And please come.
Yes. Anything else?
I would just add that thanks to the school board, we've got a liaison to our initial communications team. Ms. Berkedahl was able to attend our first meeting with Meter, who's helping us with some of the communications around referenda. This is typical of any referenda in any school district. You know, you work with, sometimes it's your construction management firm, if that's who you've been with, or an architect. In this case, we wanted somebody local who understands La Crosse better, and so we're working with a local company called Meter to develop initial messaging and ideas. They came with some really good ideas about how to frame things, about how to provide accurate information for folks, and we're still in the generative phase, but I think as soon as this week, we should be able to have something to share with the school board to look at and review. That includes some pretty attractive marketing materials and ideas, so I'm excited. I don't know if Ms. Berkedahl, you have further thoughts on that?
No, I think it's looking really good so far. I'm anxious to see what the board thinks of the key points that are part of the messaging and the pieces of data that were pulled into it. And one of the main comments I guess I had in the first iteration of the design was just to make sure that all of the data in it was something that we could easily back up, like, so, I don't know, I think that's really important in it, but it's looking good.
I know the city has used those in the past too. They do a nice job. They really do. I think you had a good choice there.
Yeah, they worked with the police department, I know, on their strategic plan, which I was really impressed with, and the city has done some work with them, like you said, I think maybe the La Crosse Center even, so, yeah, they did some really nice stuff.
They did a real nice job in La Crosse Center.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, then we will move on to the second item under information, Operational Expectation Monitoring Report, OE12 Facilities. And is Mr. Lidvina with us?
Yeah, I'll just review the process really quick. I know folks are kind of new to some of how this works. So we've got our board calendar called GC6E, Governance Culture. And it outlines all of our policies and when we're going to review them on an annual basis. And the school board in your policies indicates what your expectations for the school district are. And in operational expectations, it outlines kind of the gold standard of what you expect, how you expect a school district to be run. And OE12 focuses on facilities. And we usually use this as a 1-2 punch. Last meeting, we had the planned facility improvements for the next year presented, and then we bring the full policy at this meeting. And OE12 is all of the facilities, you know, kind of a comprehensive look at things. And the monitoring piece, once again, is what we do to meet the school board's stated expectations and policy. So you reflect the community's values and policy, and it's our job to prove to the school board and to demonstrate that we have met the school board's expectations. And I think this is often a great time to celebrate the great work that goes on in our schools by the hardworking staff that we have, our custodians and building engineers that are out there every day doing this work. It's Mr. Levina and his team here presenting, but it's really every one of us in the school district who makes these policies come to fruition. And so once the school board has had a chance to look at this monitoring report, we'll have an opportunity to review if these monitoring items are the ones we want, just like we did earlier today, and then to approve those for the next go-around next year. And on occasion, the school board might identify an item that they'd like monitored again more frequently. We did that with human resources this last year. We had done a staff survey. The school board wanted a new monitoring item. We'd like to look at this a little bit differently. And we said, absolutely. So we changed the monitoring item, and then the board asked to remonitor right away, just 4 months later.
Was that a survey?
It was a survey, yep. And previously, we had said, we'll bring the survey, and in turn, the school board said, that's great, we want the results. And so, easy change. We were able to facilitate that very quickly. And that might be the case for policies in the future. You know, you see something like, I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, or find out what's going on in 4 to 6 months. And so there's always an opportunity for that as well. We've scheduled out these policies to try to be timely for when it makes sense for the board to see them, from our collective experience over the last 4 years, but there's always adjustments there as well. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ledvina.
Thank you, Dr. Engel. I'm like Ms. Sukla. I love the fact that we started the meeting tonight with students, because whenever we talk about buildings, this really gets down to what do we do for students, right? And so it's a privilege to be a part of that process. And so the OE12 that we're talking about tonight is really looking at those operational expectations, and it's for the last fiscal year. So starting from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. And so it's our staff, and so I have two individuals here that are part of our office staff, Ann Andrews, who's our Buildings and Grounds Manager and Safety Coordinator, and Jeff Elson, our Transportation and Energy Manager, play a big part of that. Ironically, Ann started in October, so she wasn't even here for these operational expectations that we're reporting on tonight. And then we have Jen Larson, who's our administrative assistant, who isn't here. But Dr. Engel touched on it. We have 64 other custodians who are really doing an outstanding job. They're there every day. When people are using our buildings, they're taking care of our buildings, they're meeting staff needs. And so just want to recognize them tonight too for their hard work and all that they do. And then we have a crafts person as well. And so I'll get started going through these measurements and talking about the indicators. We'll start with OE 12.1, and indicator 1 is capital facility improvement and maintenance plan, and shared that with you a little bit last board meeting, but it is really a snapshot in time. And so what I provided for you was the, I think, date of April 24th, 2024. And I can tell you there's even been updates since then. It's something that we work on a regular basis as new projects come forward, or changing projects, or taking projects off the board. We do that. It's all based off a database that we created in-house, and then we generate that report and we maintain that. Just a reminder, we're talking about 1.5 million square feet, over 128 acres, over 50 acres of roofs in our facility. So it's a big undertaking, and so we have that to maintain and really monitor how we're doing with that capital improvements. The next indicator is report on completion of items of the previous year will be presented to the board annually. And so I provided that to you, a copy of the projects that were completed. Ironically, those are the projects that are completed that year. If you remember last year, we did a lot of projects. We started them in June, but we didn't complete them until after July. And so those will be actually on next year's list. So you'll see the projects that we completed last year. Indicator 3, it says all schools have a condition assessment annually. And so the evidence I provided with you, we talked about that capital improvement process where I sit down with the building engineer, sit down with the building principal, we talk about all those things. What I provided for you was the dates of those meetings that took place in 2022, which was really kind of unique because we were planning on the consolidation of our middle schools. There was extra meetings that took place. And so in preparation of that, and we did a lot of projects last year that will show up on next year's completion. I met with every staff member at every middle school by grade level twice. And we did that so that we could make that transition smoother and provide the rooms that they needed and provided everything that they needed, helping them move their things to the new school where they would be. And so it really worked out really well. Those extra meetings paid off because it really did go quite smoothly last year. Indicator 4 is preventive maintenance. The district identifies, schedules, and conducts required preventive maintenance. And so you'll see on there, I provided a memo where we've changed all the filters on our HVAC equipment. But also what's unique for us is we have maintenance contracts for our HVAC with Complete Controls and Johnson Controls. And so what you see is those maintenance contracts that we have with Complete Controls. We're in the second of a 3-year contract with them. Johnson Controls we're finishing up this year. But we sit down, what's unique about that is we sit down with them quarterly and we go over all the service requests, all the things that have happened during that quarter, so we can really keep a handle on what's happening with our HVAC that's going on. And Jeff really handles those meetings really well. The next one, indicator 5, is safety reviews conducted indicate there are no injury or life safety related concerns. And so talked about that gave you a memo of life safety codes for playgrounds and gymnasiums. Our building engineers do a monthly inspection. They fill out that form. They send it to Buildings and Grounds. We gave you an example of the safety standards that we have at the elementary school level, the middle school level, and the high school level. And Ann is in the process of updating those and changing those. We gave you an example of one of those manuals for Northwood School. So if you look through that, you'll even see pictures of where they would go if we had to evacuate that building. And so really comprehensive, and we have that for every school. A listing of the district safety committee and who's on that, fire report of what we have to do for our Hogan service room. We have fire equipment in there and the inspections that take place. And so you'll see a Speak Out, Speak Up report. That is a program where any student, staff, or community member can text what they have a concern in our schools, whether it's bullying or a anticipated event that they think that we need to know about. They send that to a text, and that text then comes to district administration, so we can follow up that before we have an issue. That's really been a really good program. I get all those texts. And we get texts on a regular basis. Some of them are significant, and some of them are just small incidents that we can take care of at the schools. And so that's a big part of that. We have a snow and ice log. So every time that it snows and we remove snow and that we put down salt in our parking lots or our walkways, we document that for every school. And so you'll see a sample of that as well. And then an incident report log. All the incidents, we have incident reports that are filled out for employees, for our students, and for any visitors. Those reports go to our office and looks those over, and then we deal with them appropriately. So that's all the evidence that we have in that indicator. Indicator 6, the district develops and maintains a long-range facility plan, and you do have a long-range facility plan, and I attached that to this indicator. Indicator 7 talks about the district long-range facility plan reviewed by the board. And so indicator 7 is a new indicator. This is something that came out of last year that you wanted to see. And so then on January 8th, 2024, the long-range facility plan as it related to the district was brought before the board in talking about long-range planning. And so that's it for 12.1 in the 7 indicators. Any questions on any of those?
Questions from the board?
Yeah.
I think I asked you this last year at this time as well. I was just wondering, in the capital maintenance plan, the 5-year projections, and then there's the section of no timeline.
Yeah.
Can you just talk briefly about how the projects are prioritized from building to building?
Yeah, so what happens, so we sit down with the building engineer and the principal, and we talk about their priorities. And so those priorities are brought back to Hogan administration. And so we look at all the individual priorities. I put a list of those together, and then I give those recommendations to the superintendent and Ms. Sprang, and we go over them before we bring them to the board. And so the no time frame really is those projects that I know we're never going to be able to fund through capital improvements, right? we know that the funding isn't enough to do that. And so we put them on there because I think it's important to maintain those projects. They've been identified as a need for the school, or it's looking at facilities and making sure that we're providing the same facilities at all of our schools. And so if you were to ask me, what is one school lacking over another, I can go to that list and maintain it. But it's really a tool that I use every day.
How do you prioritize those projects? You have like a list of?
Yeah, we have a list, and it's safety, security, it's, it's board initiatives, I have a list that lists those out on what priority we use them, and that's how we evaluate them.
The only thing that comes to the board though is anything over 100,000, correct?
Yes, and then we give what we gave to you, the presentation last time, so anything over $100,000 would come to the board for we have to bid that out and would be for your approval.
Ms. Sukla?
So, for the new members, the other part that we approve, it's part of the budget, so you approve it that way as
yeah.
well. In that document, that capital maintenance improvements for 24-25, Lincoln is still listed.
Yeah, I kept that on there because we still own the building. That's the only reason. If you look at, I moved all the projects to no time frame. I'm hoping that we have that closing next July, and so that we'll take that off there. So that's the only reason it's on there, but that's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Okay. And then we'll go to 12.2, and really system designs. And so indicator 1 in 12.2, the board receives system design alternatives for all system replacements and life cycle cost analysis. And so what we brought before the board was the bid specifications for the HVAC project that we did at Logan High using ESSER funding. Just know that when we use ESSER funding, it's a federal funding, so we have some things that we have to do differently. Contract language is one of them, certified payrolls, wages that we have to pay, and so that's all identified. And so I know there's about 457 pages in there of those documents, but that's what we do. The second part of that is Northside Elementary solar upgrade. Wanted to show you, number one, the savings that's projected over the life cost of the 30 years of the solar. And so that information is all in there, and you can see that as you move forward. The next would be 12.3 facilities.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Did you have?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, so with system design alternatives,
Yeah.
what qualifies as a system here? HVAC makes sense, but is like an individual boiler?
Yeah, an individual boiler, so we would look at those individual systems, and sometimes price dictates that, what we can afford to do, but we look at those individual heat pumps as opposed to unit vents.
So if we were to want to change the entire way a building was heated, that would
Yes.
be something that happens at the board. But if a thermostat is.
Yes,
Right,
that
we
would
can
not-
change a thermostat without board approval,
Yes,
presumably?
correct. And I think really one of the things as we work on the sustainability plan, it will identify some of those system things that will help us prioritize what we want to do. Yes.
Unless that thermostat costs $101,000.
Exactly.
Yes. Next one, any other questions on that section? The next question is facilities have properly been maintained. Indicator 1 says the district passes all required annual inspections, construction inspections in accordance with the law. You'll see their memos that we passed all elevator, boiler, and refrigeration inspections by the state. That happens on a regular basis yearly, and so we passed all those. You have some sample fire alarms, weekly tests that we do, and some sample drills that we do that we're required to do by law, and by school. And so you see those in there, in that indicator. Indicator 2, the district completes all scheduled maintenance, and so again, dates where we met with, I talked earlier how we meet with our contractors on a quarterly basis, so I provided those dates with you, and then examples of those service calls that we had over the last year, or basically from July 1st, 2022 till 23. The next one, District 3, Indicator 3, district maintains a work order system. What you see there is a report from Akita Box. We did 1,069 work orders during that year. And when we talk in terms of our staff, the people that are completing those staff are individuals who are doing trucking for our teachers. It's the custodians, it's the building engineers. Those are the ones who are completing those 1,069 work orders that are put in there. This year will be the last year you'll see Akita Box because we switched to Facility Manager Pro, and so we've updated that, so it'll be a different report, same information, different report that you'll be able to see next year when we come forward.
Mr. Levita, could you just
Yes.
remind us how many staff you have that would have dealt with 1,069 work orders? I'm assuming you don't have 1,069 people.
No, we have 64 custodians and a crafts person, and I will tell you, most of that falls on about half of them to finish those.
Thank
So
You just lost your craft personnel, correct?
we did, so we'll be hiring another crafts person within. Yep,
That's a big hit.
it is, he's very talented.
Saved a lot of money for the school district.
Yes, he did. That position does, and he was very talented. The good news is we have some very talented people in our, already working for us that I think will fill the void really nicely. Yeah, thank you. The next one, indicator number 4, during student occupied hours, 100% of facilities utilize controlled entries and sign-in processes. And so what I showed you is the Vergata guest system, a sample of that. That's a sample log when we have a visitor in the school, their ID is put in, and they're identified as a visitor, and we do a background check on site. And then card access, a sample of our employees as they enter the building, they use their name tag as a card access, and you can see a sample there. So we know when the doors are locked, we know who's coming in our facilities, and we can generate a report at any time. Indicator 5, 100% of violations per the fire department and state inspections are corrected. We had no state inspections during this time frame, but I will tell you, 100% of the fire inspections were corrected. It doesn't mean that we didn't have violations. I will tell you, they find things in classrooms and everything periodically, but generally, we correct them before the fire department even leaves the building. And so,
Anybody that's ever been in business knows they find violations.
All the time.
Yes.
the hard part is when they don't find it one time, then the next time, you know it was there last time and they didn't see it, but yes, yeah. Then indicator, that's it for those indicators. Any questions on those?
And 12.3?
Next one is facility use. Indicator 1, the district maintains the facility use policy 8300, and you'll see that policy that's there. That has not changed. The community, as we look at indicator 2, the use request process and rules are easily accessible to the public. If they go to our webpage, and if you clicked on that, you would see what they would see, so the public can reserve those spots. We had 49,298 hours beyond the school day last year. That's up about 8,000 hours. And if you remember, for those of you who've been on the board a while, it declined a little bit around COVID, but we're seeing those numbers inch up. But the community's certainly using our facilities, that's for sure. And we want them to, we encourage them to.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You brought that up. Do we have somewhere, the hours and the monies we have spent, for the community using it? The Boys Club, the Y. I know that, you know, the staff put in a lot of extra
Yep.
hours and a lot of time. That's probably overtime would be my guess.
It's
because they're
it's
putting in-
overtime when we,
Yeah, so.
for the most part.
Do we have somewhere, I just think it would be good for the community to know the kind of monies extra we do spend, in order to allow, you know, the
Yeah.
community to use that, because obviously it's a lot. And I know you bring in people on
Yeah.
every day of the week, Sundays and everything, just for a few swimmers, if that's the case, but, I think it would be interesting and beneficial to know what that is, to share with others.
I think we can get that. I also know that we use Fund 80 for some of our building use that's for community funds, and so you can go above and beyond the levy limit with Fund 80 based on the number of hours that we use, but we certainly can do something a little bit more.
It would and I understand you use that, but I think it would just be nice, even for the school board, to know, as we're even budgeting, I mean, really, you know, devil's in the detail, it'd just be nice to know the hours and the cost of all that.
Okay.
If that's
Yeah.
something we can do.
Yeah, we budget about $135,000 a year for those costs. And that's what we've levied in Fund 80 pretty typically. And so that's what we anticipate.
That's under what funding?
Fund 80. So
But it goes above and beyond that, that's just Fund 80. So I mean, I'd like to know the all-encompass of
sure.
the total amount.
Yeah, if you count the hours that are almost incidental, they're there anyway, and so we're not charging, you know, for
Well,
those
I
hours.
understand that, yeah, I mean, if they're 40 hours, it doesn't, yeah. But it would just be nice to know that.
Yeah, we can look into
We can-
that.
break that out differently, for sure.
Thank you.
Next one is 100% of misused facilities are addressed. Unfortunately, during the 2023 to 23 fiscal year, there was one major issue that caused the district to ban an organization from using our facility. We handled it internally, and they currently cannot use the facility. Indicator number 4, district facilities were returned to pre-rental condition upon conclusion of every event, and most of the time that has happened. That's 100% of the time. Once in a while, there's a minor issue. We address it with the individuals. Next time they use the facility, it's taken care of. Indicator number 5, facility use was monitored at all events and conducted safely and appropriately in accordance with the policy. And that's really where we talk about, again, our custodians. They put in a lot of extra hours, and some will say, yes, they get paid for that. They do. But I would tell you, it takes a lot of time away from their families on weekends and activities, and so they do an outstanding job, and just really want to recognize them because they're there when no one else is, and really, they're a conduit to our community, and the good customer service that they provide is outstanding. And I hear those comments all the time from our staff. People calling me about their staff and how they were treated when they used our facilities. And so a big thank you to all of them. Any questions on any of those things?
I just took the 49,000 hours and divided by 365. That's 135 hours a day our facilities are being used. So.
Yeah. The weekends are crazy. What we try to do, I can tell you from a district perspective, we try to steer everybody to the high schools. And so at least we're having fewer people. They're bigger facilities. We can accommodate more people there. So we're not having to have as much overtime or take people away. But we're certainly addressing those issues.
Joe, is there a process of like redress in the case of a ban like we had? Is that organization able to come back to us after a period of years and say?
Yeah, right now, what we've said, they broke federal and state law. And so,
Probably not,
right now they're banned.
Okay.
But didn't we say last year that they could probably go this year, and then this year we're saying next year?
No, we didn't say that they could go next year. We said they could certainly try and come forward, but I will tell you that because of the nature of that violation, I would suggest that if the public knew what happened in our school, I think they would be appalled, and I think that at least as long as I'm making the decision, and certainly Dr. Engel and Ms. Sprang can counteract me, but I would not support them using our facility in the near future.
And at the end of the day, it is your decision?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we're always happy to take folks' concerns though, and Mr. Lavina talked to them again this year, and we probably will again next year, and if we have assurances or certainties in place, we're always happy to redress that.
The next one is 12.5, and dealing with Administrative Policy Number 9400, a final decision for naming rights or renaming a facility shall be made by the Board of Education. And so there was no naming recommendations during that year. However, Steve Hole Gymnasium we had a ceremony on February 9th, 2023. The board approved that at the board meeting the previous year at 6/6/22. And so the board approved that, had the ceremony, but I thought it was worth mentioning, especially Steve Hole and all that he's done for the north side. The next one is OE 12.6, Indicator 1. All major construction or renovation activities are presented to the board and approved by the board for action. Again, the only one that fell under that criteria was the HVAC project at Logan High School, and that was approved by the board on December 5th, 2022. And again, we're doing a little bit more on that project. We have more ESSER funding, so we'll be doing additional work as I outlined at the last board meeting. Next one is 12.7. The board is briefed on all recommended land acquisition and projects to include growth patterns, comparative costs. We did not recommend any purchase of any property, but we do have 2 leases that year. We had Polytechnic parking lot that we leased for $6,367, And then we had integrated support for $38,000 that was paid for by ESSER funding. That will go away because that group was moved to Logan High School, or Central High School, and so that will go away. The next one is OE 12.8, Indicator 1. All contracts and projects are administered so that construction change orders are at a minimum and don't significantly increase the cost or reduce the quality of the program. Indicator 1 and 2 kind of go together. We had 3 change orders, 2 for the central office renovations in an account of $28,941, 1 for the central HVAC at $6,499. There was no change in quality, but the office renovations counted for 2.2% of the total cost of the project, and the HVAC accounted for 1%. So typically, I would use that 5% number, so we're well below that. Those came in front of the board on September 19th, 2022, and then October 17th, 2022. And so with that.
For people who may not understand the language, could you explain what a change order would be?
Yeah, so a change order might be, as we get doing the project, we might find something that we didn't identify in the initial scope of the work. And so, an example, and I can't remember what these were, but it might be that we found, when we opened up the wall to do some HVAC work, we found some asbestos. That would be an example of we'd have to abate that, and so to charge it to the project, we'd have to do that. I don't remember specifically these, but that would be an example. Or as we went into the work, we found out that we missed a fan on the scope of the work, and so we had added through that change order. We'd bring that to the board would approve it, and then we'd move forward.
Thank you.
When you mentioned that the 5%, that's in terms of like an overhead projected
Yeah, that's what
within a construction
we
project?
never want to go over that, but that's kind of an indicator what we kind of budget for, is that 5%. Yeah. And with that, I'll entertain any other questions that you may have.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Ms. Sukla?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. You always give us a very thorough report, and I know you're here frequently throughout the year to give us updates. My only comment is, I always make it echo, that's me. I should not touch that thing. It's the policy, the way we've written it in that, find the right language, wherein the ownership of the district long-range facility plan rests with the staff and not the board. And I understand in policy, this is just my personal opinion, I understand in policy, I don't want to be, I don't know enough about buildings and HVAC, and I mean, the reason we have policies that we set broad policies and we don't get into the nitty-gritty of things is because we're not the experts of that, and I work to honor that. However, at the end of the day, we have to make decisions such as we have about referendums and things like that. And so we still have a lot of skin in the game. And so personally, I would like to see us as a board at some workshop perhaps discuss this policy, the way it's written, and is there an interest in perhaps modifying the language to share the ownership of that district long-range facility plan? Because if all we do as a board is react to it, I don't think that's helpful. If we as a board drive it and get in the nitty-gritty, that's not helpful. It really is truly a shared effort, but those comments are not about the work you've done or the monitoring of this report. You've done a great job. It's just the policy we've written, and it's just, I would like to have a discussion at a future workshop if that's possible. But I appreciate your report, Joe. Nothing here surprises. You've brought so much to us in previous meetings, so thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, the other thing, for the recognition of the custodians. I just talked to a spouse of a custodian this weekend who was a little frustrated that they rarely saw their spouse because they work at a high school, and there were so many things going on at the high schools this weekend. But kudos to the staff to make that happen and keep our facilities truly public facilities.
Thank you for saying that, because they truly are outstanding. And we're trying to incorporate some things next year to share some of the wealth, bringing some of the elementary student staff in to kind of counteract some of them so they don't have to work quite so much at the high schools. So thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Questions? None?
I just wanted to point out that I think quite a bit of the public use of the buildings is for some of the extracurricular programs to fundraise, to support their programs, and how important that is to allow them to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Urbina.
Thanks, Joe.
Next on the information is the facilities referendum discussion. And so I had an opportunity to talk with Ms. Sukla today, and my understanding is, Mr. Bagnevsky, you had some questions that you wanted to bring forward, or a conversation you wanted to have regarding the facilities. I believe it was 712 buildings or something to that effect. So I'll turn it over to you so that you can enlighten us first.
Before he continues, I would also like to start a discussion after Mr. Bagneski is finished with his.
Well, let's start. Thank you.
Okay. I really have nothing wrong with, I'm going to refer to what's on the table now as phase one. I'm proposing this as a phase two. People in my circles talk about a district plan. We talked about a comprehensive plan for the entire district that would see us into the foreseeable future. The facility plan started with a high school plan, and then a middle school was closed. And what is being proposed for the referendum can be considered phase one with modifications that I will explain later. Phase one takes care of elementary school buildings, a new school on a Hogan site, and Emerson and Spence students. This is a facility update. Hinchin closing and students being divided between Hamilton and State Road is a budget need. Emerson is 80 years old, Spence is 71, Hinchin is 56. What about the high schools and middle schools? People ask me, where's the district plan? We need a facility plan that takes us into the foreseeable future. Longfellow and Logan Middle are two of the oldest buildings in the district, both well over 80 years. Enrollment at the middle school and high school will be about at 60% capacity shortly. We are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep our middle schools operational. When the middle schools become too expensive and the enrollment is reduced, what will we do? Tear down and build? Where? Probably at the same site, but this is a 2-year process. What will the students do in the interim? So phase two should be a start of a remodeling and possibly adding to the high schools so that they are a combination 6 through 12 or 7 through 12 with a distinct area for separation. The 4 buildings, 2 high schools and 2 middle schools, can combine into 2 buildings. The numbers are there. I do not believe Hogan should be moved to Central, but maybe to Hinchin or Spence, since that would then revoke a middle school. Phase one and phase two would take the district into a foreseeable future. It's a comprehensive plan. If we're concerned with 6 through 12, they don't have to touch each other. They can be divided. Right now, there's 42 districts that I know of in Wisconsin that have a 7 or 6 through 12 high school, middle school. So I think this would be a reasonable path to take, and I'm referring it to phase two versus what's on the table now as phase one, and we can have a discussion.
I want to make sure I understand the timeline of what you're thinking about.
Say that again.
I want to make sure I understand the timeline of what you're thinking about.
Yeah, and I can't answer that. I mean, somebody has to.
I just mean in terms of starting the process. So the process starting here at the table. When you're saying phase one, does that mean seeing the results of the current referendum language?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then the only thing I would like to see changed on phase one is not moving Hogan to Central, because if phase two comes in effect, then we have to move Hogan out of there. There's no reason, in my opinion, and there could be reasons that I don't understand right now, but there's no reason that Hogan couldn't go to Spence or Hinchin.
Okay, and my understanding would be that nothing in the referendum language ties us to keeping or to moving Hogan administration to
No,
Central. We
you're
have
right.
flexibility in terms
You're
of
right.
where it goes.
I agree
Okay.
with it. Yep.
As if my memory serves, one of the points of discussion we did go through with the current referendum language was the flexibility it offers us with the Spence site as a good potential site for a middle school if the need arises. So something to consider in what you said about, you know, where would we build and what that process would look like. That was a consideration. So.
Again, I think an extra building with our budget.
I mean, right now, we're using our budget to kind of cover everything, and I think I say this enough because I was there, our number one priority in this school district needs to be the staff.
I would say the number one priority is our students, to ensure that they're meeting the results that we've achieved, and I get where you're going.
Yes.
But I would also
but-
say, I
But my
understand.
point was, we don't employ the students. Our employee bill, we can make a significant difference by paying our staff what they should get, along with health insurance, benefits, et cetera.
Well, and I think that
But I would
we-
agree with the students. I'm not gonna argue the students aren't important.
And again, I think I'm just struggling with being confused by this topic at this point in time. I'll just be very frank.
But
Because, excuse me, allow me to finish. This topic is a phenomenal topic to have once we complete the work on the referendum. You are correct. We should be thinking strategically about our facilities, and we have. We put forward a high school referendum. The community decided that it was not the right plan at that point in time. We have completed our consolidation at that level at this time. We then closed Lincoln and moved those students to either Logan or Longfellow, which concluded our consolidation at the middle school. This plan is now allowing us to consolidate at the elementary level. So to say that it has not been strategically thought out is incorrect, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I believe it is incorrect. And again, that is where I struggle, because I feel that this topic is now diverting our attention away from making sure that we have a concrete plan and a concrete path forward to pass a referendum that we desperately need. And we don't need to devote our time right now. We need to stay focused, and we need to stay true to our voice that this board has already put forward to move a referendum, to move passage of that referendum by November. And then I think if you truly want to talk about this as a phase two, then phase two happens after phase one. So let's allow phase one to be completed, then we can move forward to phase two.
But I'm afraid a number of people.
Excuse me, we got a number of people talking, so I heard Ms. Sukla first.
So, since I put the agenda item up here, I'd like to address this first. My intention with this discussion was just to start a discussion. I would like to say, first of all, the comments that were made earlier by the public speaker as well as the board president in some emails didn't quite represent my intention of bringing this forward. I wanted to have a discussion. People had some thoughts, because the thing that I'm hearing from the public is, so if we do this, then what? What else will happen? What else will happen? And I understood that Mr. Bagneski had an idea, and I thought that's brings the board into moving the conversation forward as to then what happens. And quite frankly, we have a referendum to bring forward. I think as I said at the last meeting, when the question was asked, will this undo the referendum? I said, I hope not. But it's up to the board to decide. When it was asked of me at the last meeting, with this discussion, do we need to make it as an action item to undo the referendum? I also declined to do that. So I want to be really clear. My intention is simply to have a discussion. Our job as a board is to make the decision regarding the referendum, but it needs to be a decision that this community can support. Because if we make a referendum decision that this community can't support, and I understand the staff's concerns, like, we've been through a lot. We've been through hell waiting, we're constantly like, is it our school? Was it our job? Is it my kids? What's going on? I completely understand the anxiety that goes with that. But if we don't put forward a referendum that is successful, we're back to square one, and we've done nothing as a board. So our job is to make the right decision, and that's really what I was hoping for. And quite frankly, I think as far as Mr. Bagneski's thought, I think it fits in with the comments I said earlier about facility planning, and maybe it's a workshop conversation where we start to say, so assuming we put forward a referendum, we are going to communicate with the public. We're going to hear from the public what their concerns are in the next few weeks. We're going to be able to provide information and answers to them over the course of the summer and the fall. We're going to do everything we can to have a successful referendum. But in the meantime, we should also be then answering that question, and then what? What's the next step? And I think Mr. Bagneski brings forward a possible idea, a possible discussion, but I don't know enough about it to say if I like it or I don't like it, but I think it pushes us to go forward and say what's next. And so I think that's the intention of this discussion. And also, you know, there's not gonna be any future surprises of bringing something forward when it comes to the agenda planning. There's no longer gonna be an opportunity on the agenda for us to provide that input, so the public won't be surprised by that as well. The board president has made that clear with the board.
Okay, Mr. May.
All right, I have a feeling mine is probably going to be slightly more controversial. However, I had the privilege to tour all the elementary schools that were up for the referendum. And though I may support the northern section with Spence and Emerson closing for Hogan, I do have a couple of concerns with the south side that I want to bring up as well. The first point is that we do not really have an exact price on how much it would cost to expand State Road. We do, however, have a couple of numbers here, and it looks like it will be $4.3 million cheaper to expand Hinchin than it would be to State Road. I checked over to State Road, and State Road was built in 1968, if I'm correct. However, one of the biggest points about adding to State Road was that it had additions to it that did make it new. But I was looking at a lot of the additions as well were true. There are additions to it. There are a lot of older modifications that need to be constructed if we were to go forward with this plan. The biggest problem that I saw was the roofs. The roofs of the old wing do need to be replaced in some kind of way. I also did ask what exactly is the plan for this State Road Elementary, and I don't think we do have a concise plan. I believe we do have a blueprint up. We could ask, is Mr. Lavina still here?
Well, why don't you go ahead and continue with your comments? We can hold off Mr. Lavina for a second.
All right. Since, from my understanding, it was more of an ambiguous plan to just expand upon State Road. So we don't exactly have a full number of the cost of expanding State Road. We have an estimate, however, we are told it could be much more. We do know for Hinchin, though, that the estimate is $4.3 million cheaper than it would be to expand upon State Road. And Hinchin also does have space that would provide for expansion that already does have some investments that we're supposed to be into. The Hinchin Neighborhood Association planned on adding trails towards their empty space and putting trees in there. The space also has a lot of potential to build a new building, or, and this does need to be verified too, Hinchin could possibly have a second floor, similar to what State Road already has, that is very similar to design. However, I was told to check over on the structural security of that. I bring this up not to completely throw the referendum into a confused mess. However, as candidates for this board, we did have to consider what we would propose for this. And this proposal, the current one, was accepted the meeting before we were first sworn in on April 27th, was it?
22nd.
22nd. These are the thoughts that the community has shared. Also from members of the neighborhood of Hinchin, but also from a lot of faculty from the schools. Both schools are good. However, I believe it is more fiscally responsible to invest upon Hinchin and maybe, as Jim Bagneski said, bring Hogan over to State Road, where we can still use the facilities for outdoor facilities for classrooms and for outdoor instructions.
So I appreciate your comments, Mr. Manka. I would say, number one, that on May 3rd, this District Superintendent Dr. Engels sent us in board update, which talked about the Hinchin State Road comparison, which talked about the details of why State Road was a better site, given that it has 52 acres of county land that has an outdoor classroom, has walking trails, 22.5 acres of Chad Erickson Memorial Park, has the Vietnam Veterans Pond right there. We have parking spaces. We have a bus stop that would need to be a little closer, but working with the city about that, whereas Hinchin did not have as much. The school district plows the church across the street in order for us to have parking for the staff and for parents. There is a central core, as you stated, we could potentially add on, but the amenities that are provided to students, given the location to city facilities, it far exceeds what we would get at the Hinchin site. So these are all things that you were privy to. These are all things that were discussed for the last year as a school board to talk about the referendum. We made the decision not in a vacuum. We had those conversations publicly. And so, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand that you have questions, and I understand that as a new board member, you'd like to have a voice in making the decision, but I also think that it is important to recognize the work that was done beforehand and that a lot of those answers were provided. So I would just say to you that I appreciate the questions, I appreciate that you're bringing them forward in open session, but also recognize that the answers were provided too. Mr. Bagnevsky.
And my concern with the present plan is it is not long-range. It is not comprehensive. It does not take us into the foreseeable future. We're going to be right back at this table in 2 or 3 years saying, what are we going to do now with the middle schools and high schools? And so if we go to the public right now, people I talk to say, hey, I thought we had a district plan. Now we're talking about the elementary schools. What happened to the district plan to move forward into the foreseeable future? So we talk about this disrupting maybe the passage of this referendum. I think if we can't say in front of some public, this is what our plan is for the near future, I think we're dead in the water.
Mr. Bagnevsky,
okay.
I think,
We do have a plan. Did you see it in the agenda? It's the 2050 long-range facility plan. It's published and approved by the board recently.
Dr. Spike?
I was just going to say, I think your language of phase 1, phase 2 is appropriate for that. And at the end of the day, the work of taking care of a suite of facilities of different ages and different qualities doesn't end. And the immediate project, and this has been several years of ongoing work, right, to come to just this referendum question, that phase 1, if you want to call it that, right, is an appropriate language for it, I think, because this gets us out of the immediate 6-year projected deficit of, I believe it was $3.6 million, a question we have to address in the near term after having gone through the high school option, after having gone through the closure of Lincoln Middle School. We have a process that we've been working through to address facilities at different levels to make sure that we are able to continue providing all of the programming that we are maintaining our staffing and not suffering some of the severe consequences that districts around the state and around the country are facing, right? These are not isolated problems. I'm all for having the discussion of what's next for the middle schools. Those are the oldest buildings. I'm all for having the discussion in the details of where is the appropriate place for the district administration to be housed and what kind of flexibility is there. But to say that the current referendum language isn't forward-thinking, I think is exactly wrong. The construction of a new elementary school, consolidating Spence and Emerson, giving us regularized boundaries without some of the awkward busing islands that we've had, with schools in the neighborhoods, which was highlighted by community surveys as an important priority, being able to move teachers and cohorts of students together to minimize disruption as much as is possible without a massive reconfiguration of our grade levels, which there is plenty of research out there about combined grade levels and the benefits of minimizing transition between grade levels. There is also no consensus in that research about the current best practices. There are standalone 9th grade pre-high school academies. There are the old model of the junior high school, which sort of fell out of favor. And then K through 8 sort of setups as well. All of those are supported by research and are perfectly valid. But when we've been talking about disruption, adding on to this at this point a layer of disruption of reconfiguring the traditional grade levels as the district has experienced them forever, as far as any of our memories are concerned, that sounds like a phase 2 consideration, right? And I agree with Dr. Jimenez that the focus now needs to be on getting the questions from the community that they have about how we are going to implement this, about what the changes will be, giving us the opportunity to find that information if it doesn't already exist, to continue presenting the information that we have been poring over for a year, right? In terms of the decision-making of why, for instance, the Facilities Advisory Committee wasn't considering State Road in the first place after the initial rounds of that. All of those things had been discussed previously. So I'm not opposed to having those discussions. I think Dr. Jimenez's point is that the time is after we see what the community says about phase one. Because if the referendum should fail, I don't think we're back at square one. We have options in front of us. We have the best input we could get from the community, and the work will continue. And the work will continue if the referendum passes, because it has to. We own these properties forever until we offload them. We're gonna have to keep doing something about them.
I still think we gotta look further down the road. We're all in this situation today because previous administrations did not look down the road.
I don't disagree with that.
They did what they had to do to make things work at that time. And now I'm trying to make sure that this does sell to the community by making it look like, hey, listen, we have a comprehensive plan for the district. And it's not putting this off or putting that off.
I would encourage folks to check out the long-range facility plan. It does go into some detail, and I know folks new to the board might not have a chance to dive into all, with so much documents and so much stuff, but I'll make sure that gets sent out to you individually so that you get a chance to look at that. And, it may not go into quite the detail you're talking about, at our middle and high school levels, but, it addresses a number of key tasks and phases over time. And to Ms. Sukla's point, I do look forward to a workshop opportunity to dive deep into that and talk about what do long-range facility plans look like in the future. And I think that could go a long way towards, clarifying our common understanding about what the intent is and what the board as a whole also wants to do. So.
I would say there will always be a long-range facility plan item in the district. And boards will always be talking about it.
I'm going to back up.
Situations
In the
where
foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a caveat.
Ms. Sukla.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that the idea of a workshop is amenable. I'm perplexed as to why there's such strong passion around allowing people to discuss the next steps. I think we are all very interested in doing the right thing for our students and doing the right thing for our students in terms financially. And I do, if the referendum isn't successful, we're back to having to make some very difficult financial decisions. And we've all said, clearly have said that this is gonna involve staff. And so I don't wanna have to do that for anything. I want to be able to have a referendum put out there that can be supported by the community, that's the right decision, even if, again, I don't think we need, I'm not gonna make a motion today to tweak it or anything, but I wanna make sure that the referendum that's put forward will be successful, is something the community can support, so we can move on successfully together to the next, the next part of our long-range plan and talking about what we knew. And again, how do we share the long-range plan administration with the board? Because we're the ones having to make these decisions here at this table, and so to simply be reacting to something administration brings forward is not what the public expects of us. I'm not saying we do that, and that's why I'm just saying we want to be able to share. And I know I'm going to do the debriefing, but I personally appreciate the diverse opinions around the table, and I appreciate this board rolling up their sleeves and working hard to kind of figure out where everybody's at and how do we come to a common place.
And just one more comment that bothers me. I don't need to be put down for making an opinion that goes forward.
That would be fair. I would also say that we have a lot of different opinions, and I'll explain why I'm passionate. It's because exactly this. We have had these conversations, at least for me, since December of 2020, when we first started conversations about how to consolidate buildings. So this is not a new conversation. This isn't even a one-year conversation. It is almost a 4-year conversation on referenda, on consolidation. I would also say that we are all moving forward to the same goal. I would say that for now, until the board rescinds the referendum, whether a board member individually agrees with it or not, this board has decided to move forward with the referendum, and it is our job to champion that referendum as written until this board makes a decision differently. So I get the passion, I get the concerns, I get the questions. I do not want this board to change its focus. I do not want this board to divide its focus. Right now, the only way that I can think of to ensure this referendum passes, to Ms. Sukla's point, is to ensure that our focus stays consistent and stays true to the goal of passing this thing in November. So until then, I think it muddies the waters, it confuses our community, it brings forward people who are going to be speaking to us and wondering what in God's name are we doing, rather than we seem united as a board on this motion on the referendum, and because we are united, the community would be as well. If we're divided, then we have absolutely no reason to believe that this referendum will pass, period. So that is my passion. That is where I'm at. And I think that what we heard from our public speaker this evening, what we're probably going to hear in the foreseeable future until we clear up this confusion about where the board stands, is going to be a lot of questions about where does the board go next when we go to these community listening sessions. And that's my fear, is that time will be spent there, away from the actual focus of our work. I hope not. And I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate this board because we can be passionate and yet still move forward with a common purpose. And we should be. That is our job. We represent this community and we have disparate perspectives. Any other comments on the facilities referendum discussion?
I'd like to just briefly point out as a reminder that in considering, I'm just picking up, Ms. Sukla, you said a couple of times, our job is to find the right answer. And I think that presupposes that there's an objectively correct answer out there that we're just trying to discover. And I don't think that's the case. What we've been doing is looking at a pile of data and trying to make the best decision we can with the driving interest of all of us trying to interpret what is best for our community. And I believe we've done that with this. The community will decide if they agree with that plan, and we will continue to exercise that judgment in discussions going forward. And I would just like to point out as a reminder to everybody that the board was unanimous in most of its decisions around what wasn't an acceptable option. All of us on the board voted against certain things because we didn't find it to be forward-thinking enough, we didn't find it to be in the best interest of the district, and we narrowed our way down to the current plan. Not without division, not without discussion, not without weighing alternatives and the benefits and trade-offs of the different courses of action. The point to which we got was firm, was united, and I think importantly, we have seen some of the results of that already in the survey that was sent out to our staff, which showed strong support. I wish more than 568 or 98, whatever number it was, people had responded to it, but surveys are surveys. That data was impressive from the surveys. And what we have heard in recent linkages from community members and staff members has been, I won't use the word overwhelmingly, but significantly positive. And as we've heard from our public speakers recently as well, staying the course, seeing this part of the project through, enabling us to have more productive discussions down the line about how to go forward from there. We can't do anything until we have a decision on a major issue here.
We spent a lot of time sifting through a ton of options. And they all could have worked. They all could have helped us achieve the cost savings that we needed. And it was really difficult, and it gave, I think, everybody probably a significant amount of anxiety finalizing the plan that we've decided to go forward with. And there's definitely been moments where I've wondered too, like, is this the best way? Is there something else we could have done? And I keep reminding myself of a bunch of things that have been said already tonight. A, people feel relief that we have selected something. B, this option gives us an opportunity to modernize the educational experience for kids at 2 different schools, and allows us to keep bigger cohorts of kids with their teachers in their next spot, right? And I think if we would have just gone to referendum for Emerson and Spence, I think it would pass. And if we decided later that we then wanted to do, at the end of the day, oh yeah, Hinchin State Road was the best idea, whether it's at Hinchin or State Road, I think if we split those things, it would fail. I don't think the community would want to see back-to-back capital referendums, especially if the second one brings more questions than the first one. And then we'd have to outright close a building, sending kids in more directions than we could have had we brought them together. So that's, yes, I mean, to Adam's point, there's a ton of options. There really, truly is. And I feel confident that this path forward allows us to provide what's best for students and bringing them together. And it gives our community the decision. They get to decide. If they say no, then we have a bunch of other options we could bring forward. But at this point, this plan gives our community the choice. And so far, we've already heard LEA wants to get on board with it. People want to know for sure that this is what we're moving forward with it, because this lone agenda item, I think, has caused some concern in the community, like, oh no, what's going to happen? And that's okay, Deb, I totally think, I agree that it's important to have a conversation together. So all of us because 3 of you are new, and you weren't able to be part of the conversations before, so I'm not trying to dig that we had this conversation tonight, but I think it did cause some concern with the community, and I think if we can move together forward on from this night as a united front and give the community the decision in November and work our tails off to gather as much information as we can with the community, give them input to how the buildings are gonna look, I think it could end up being a really positive project for the community. And then, as you'll notice in the 2050 long-range facility plan, we won't have to offload any more buildings, and there's no plan to do that in the next 25 years. It's gonna feel really good to have more conversations at this board table about how we can improve the district rather than right-sizing it. How we can add on to Central and Logan with tech ed and other things rather than which schools are we closing. Like, it's gonna be a huge relief to not have to talk about that anymore.
I have a couple
Mr. Newmaster.
I'm sorry, thank you. First off, Jim and Adam, thank you. I think it's important for you to at least voice your concerns and your ideas, so I appreciate it. And I know everyone does, but I'm just voicing that out loud. And Kitty had brought up something about 2 referendums, and obviously I was the only no vote, right, on the referendum. I want to make it clear, I am all for the referendum. My concern was, and it's a complete opposite of Katie's, I honestly think breaking them up at 2 different questions with the state road as a secondary question gives our people, our taxpayers the opportunity to feel they're even more part of the decision. So that was my only point. I would have liked to seen it break up, into two different questions, but I think we chose the right direction, and I'm for the referendum. And let's be honest, without this referendum, there are some places, their school's gonna be closed. And they're gonna be grade schools, and they're gonna be your favorite schools, and there's gonna be staff that have to be cut. This is the best we can do now. But I really, truly do appreciate the comments made today, because phase 2 is definitely something we need to look at. And I appreciate Deb for bringing this up, and at least allow it to be spoken about with our new board members and all of us together. I think moving forward, I think it just brings us, a little more united, if nothing else, at the end of the day with the referendum. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Oakland? And, Mr.
Did
May-
you have something to say, Tim?
I can,
You have-
I'll just go
No,
last.
you need to go
I
ahead.
haven't talked yet, so I'll
Yeah,
just go
no,
last.
no.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
My
I was gonna
question-
say.
My question was simply gonna be on process. As agendas, although board members can provide input to the board president, agendas are set by the board president, and as there's no, as you've clearly stated your opinion on all of this, I don't know when or how any conversation could be held on anything about the referendum. I want to understand the process, if or how that could happen, and then the process on when a workshop could occur on the phase two, on the future discussions of facility planning.
So what I would say is that the reason, and I stated it very clearly to the board members about why agenda planning has been removed from the agenda. And there is always an appeal process, but it still requires a conversation with me in order to determine whether we should add that item to the agenda, as I stated in my email to the board, that usually, almost always, I want to say that if I said no to an agenda item, it was because it was not within our scope, it was against our policies, it was already covered in our policies, because somebody may want to add a new policy, or because we had an issue with state or federal law, or within our own specifications and requirements as a board. So typically, I have not had an issue to deny anybody a agenda item being added unless it was one of those things. So again, the board president sets the agenda, but the one piece that was left out is that governing GC 6E, the work plan, is what sets the agenda for the board, which this board unanimously approved at the reorganization meeting. And that agenda is set for the board meetings, it's set for the workshops. So I would also look at, to your question about having a phase two conversation, I would look at what is already slated for workshops, and if it fits in there, then there's no need to add another workshop. Now, if it was something that is slated for December and we feel that it's necessary to have it sooner, we could talk about that. But if it's slated for June or July, then there's no reason to have another workshop in between. So that is the process. The process is, as it has always been, at least in my 2 years as a president previously, and at least in my time on the board, you speak to the president that you'd like to add something, we have a conversation, and then we decide where to go from there. So.
We being you and the individual, not you and the full board.
Well, it would be me and the individual unless we feel like it has to be brought forward to the board.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Mink, and then Mr. Alberts after that?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I guess I'll talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is exactly what I needed tonight. You know, being a new board member, you know, you have questions. I was on the facility advisory committee, you know, that started last April and went to November. I'm glad you guys didn't come up with what was our recommendation, which was closing schools. You have my full support in terms of this referendum going forward. Again, I mean, it's very important for, you know, the community. Obviously, the teachers were a little worried about what was going to happen tonight, but I don't think that's what we were all intending from when we voted the way we voted. So I'm glad that this discussion actually did happen, just to clarify things. But again, I think this is the best option, especially being on that facility advisory committee and seeing what you guys have come up with. So I'm in full support of it. So.
Thank you. Mr. Minka?
Yes, I'd like to give a thank you to everyone for allowing this conversation to talk forward. I wanted to clarify, though, that we will be moving forward with the referendum, and it does have my full support with it. As a new board member, it's great to be able to voice at least an opinion of a decision that was made beforehand. So for that, I'd like to give a special thanks, and also special thanks to everyone else for their own ideas as well, and for the plan that we have currently.
Any other comments? Dr. Garcia?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I appreciated hearing everybody as well, and it's useful to me to hear the new voices since I don't know any of you very well. But I especially like your attention to like the bigger picture and the broader plan. And I think it's tempting to want to like make the plan and then execute the plan. But the reason we have it in phases is because of this community input that we want to get with the referendum. And part of what slows that, make the big plan and execute the big plan, for good reason, I think, because we want the community on board. We want all of us to be on board. It's exactly the kind of thing we're doing, is having the conversations and going forward. But I look
And
forward
I
to
brought
phase
forward
2.
my circle of people, say, I want a district plan, I don't wanna do this again in 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's what may happen. And yet, here it is in front of us.
Other comments? Hearing none. Moving to the announcements, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Berkedal for the LPEF update.
I don't have anything tonight.
Wonderful. And
Thanks.
and I do not have anything myself, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Engel.
Thank you, both of you, for ceding your time to me. And so I just wanted to highlight that we had amazing graduation ceremonies for Cooley Region Virtual Academy and Polytechnic last Friday. A small group of students graduating, but each one of those students was able to find a pathway that met their needs and to graduate on time. And it's just so awesome to see the hard work of teachers, the outpouring of love and thankfulness to the parents and the staff that got them across the finish line. And while it's a small group, it's really impactful, I think. And we get to look forward to this Friday. We have Central and Logan's graduation, and those will be much larger in volume and just as exciting. Each ceremony is unique in its own ways, and I really appreciate the way Logan and Central do theirs as well. And then there's an additional graduation that some might not know about. It's the Western Technical College's GED, HSED open house. And just an incredible number of students who take advantage of that pathway to finish their high school diploma, to give themselves a credential that will help them be successful in their life and their career. You know, to see a regular graduation and the outpouring of emotion is significant. To see it at one of these events is, 2 or 3 times that. It's really inspiring to see some of the hard challenges that these students have overcome to finish that credential for themselves. And in terms of scale, and not all of these students attended lacrosse or currently attend lacrosse, but there were 114 students who identified lacrosse as their place of residence. So that's a lot of students, adults, who might have come from other places, ended up here, or live in nearby communities and graduated through this program identifying lacrosse as their residence. But that's just awesome to see that kind of a partnership in our community that's so successful with students. And I've said this a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, there's a special place in heaven for alt ed teachers. They do very special work, have a very special set of patience and skills that allows them to be successful with kids who really need a comprehensive, welcome, warming teacher. So really excited about graduation, and that's all I have.
Great. So we'll turn it over to, I believe, Ms. Sukla for the board debriefing.
So the board debriefing is to allow the board to observe and provide feedback on the meeting in terms of what do we do well, what didn't go well, where do we need improvement, and also for the public and new board members, this is a rotation, so look on there and make sure you're prepared for when your turn comes up, because that was a struggle. And then the other point is communication points for the public. In terms of what went well, I mean, the part that we have the students at the top of the agenda, I think, is always the best part of our meeting, and our agenda's done well in terms of that, because it really brings our focus to where it needs to be in terms of the students. I also think that what went well is the new board members were allowed to offer their support for the referendum. And I think that was much needed, and the public needed to hear that. In fact, my recommendation for a talking point to the community is that the new board members have expressed their support for the referendum, as well as the rest of the board. As far as what can we do to improve, I think the beginning of the facility conversation certainly started out terse, and I think being able to respectfully reflect on different opinions and allow space for different opinions for us to really, at the end, as we did that conversation, to come to places that we agree. And I think continuing to work on that respectful space to do that is really important.
So are there key talking points you want?
The key talking point would be that the new board members vocalized their support for the referendum.
Any other ones?
continuing to or tell the public about our referendum update and, or our outreach for the referendum. That's important too.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
think, yeah, making sure that those dates are out there for people.
Mr. Bigness?
This is just an ad lib. On Thursday, Central High School is having its Hall of Excellence, and my daughter's being inducted in.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank her.
Is that Erin?
Yeah, congratulations to her.
Can I ask a quick question? If it's ish here, with the high school kids terming off because they graduated, what's the timeline for getting new students?
It's usually with the student government at the beginning of the next school year. If I'm incorrect, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Engel or
Ms.
Ms. Everson?
Steigerwald, what's our process?
It's essentially that, yeah, when the student senates or councils meet at the beginning of the year, yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
What time do you want us there on Friday?
I believe,
Graduation's at
Yeah.
5, so we should be there at 4:30-ish.
Is it 5
Yeah.
or 5:30?
4:30. If you want to find parking, you might want to get there earlier, but, you know,
Isn't it 5:30 though, or is
I
it
think
5?
I thought it was 5:30.
Oh, maybe. Well, I'm always
Or
late,
is
so
it-
tell me
Yeah.
5.
Might be 5 and 7:30.
Is it, who is all going to both?
yeah, who is going to
I'm
both?
out of town.
Okay.
How many of us can
Carp-
hang out together in between without breaking open meetings?
It's posted, don't worry.
Yeah,
Oh, so we could go out to dinner or something?
we'd have to notify where we're going.
Starts at the lacrosse center and it moves from
Toledo's.
there.
Excellent choice.
It's at 5.
Yeah,
Yep, it's at
that's what I
5,
thought.
so I'd recommend being in the hall around 4:30
4:30,
so
yeah.
that we can line up and
Yeah.
get our gowns
Get your
on.
stuff on.
Yeah, so
Yep.
4:30 at the latest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.